Dad, perfect events. My FBI son called at midnight. Check your pills. Tonight. My son Victor called at midnight. Dad, listen carefully. Check your medication bottles right now. Don't let Roger know you're awake. Whatever you do, don't tell him I called. Victor, you're scaring me. Just do it, Dad. Trust me. The line went dead. My name is Harold Williams. I'm 58 years old, retired police chief from Denver. Spent 35 years working the streets, thinking the worst dangers came from the criminals we chased. Turns out the real threat was sitting at my own dinner table. I grabbed my pill bottles from the nightstand. Same medications I'd been taking for years. Blood pressure, cholesterol, nothing fancy. But when I held them up to the light, something looked wrong. The pills were different, slightly larger, different shade of white. Someone had been tampering with my medication. Let me tell you about my family. My daughter Linda, 42, works as a nurse practitioner. Smart girl, always was. After her mother died, 3 years ago, she met Roger Mitchell. Real smooth talker, claimed he was a financial advisor. When they got married last year, I was happy for her. Man wants his daughter to find someone who will take care of her. Roger moved into my house about 6 months ago. Said it made financial sense, helped me with bills, keep me company. I should have trusted my cop instincts. Something about him never felt right. Too eager to help, too interested in my finances, too quick to answer my phone when friends called. My son Victor, 44, works for the FBI in their financial crimes division. He tried visiting more often after Roger moved in, but Roger always had excuses. Your dad's tired, needs his rest, doctor says too much, excitement isn't good for someone his age. Eventually Victor's visits became shorter, less frequent. That night in February changed everything. After Victor's warning call, I checked those pills more carefully. Got out my old magnifying glass, the one I used for evidence work. The pills looked identical to my regular medication, but they felt heavier. Someone had switched them out. I didn't sleep that night. Sat in my workshop in the basement, surrounded by my collection of antique clocks. 15 of them, each one I'd restored myself over the years. Hobby I picked up after retirement, working with my hands, fixing broken things, bringing them back to life piece by piece. Around 3 a.m., I heard footsteps upstairs. Roger was moving around, talking on his phone in hushed tones. Through the heating vents, I caught fragments of conversation. Yeah, the old man's been taking them for weeks. Won't be long now before we can move forward. The next morning, Roger was all smiles at breakfast. How'd you sleep, Harold? You look tired. Maybe we should schedule that doctor's appointment I mentioned. Dr. Stanley Cooper, he specializes in geriatric care. Very experienced with memory issues. Memory issues. That's when it clicked. They weren't just drugging me, they were building a case. That I was losing my mind. I played along, acted confused about simple things, forgot conversations we'd had, asked the same questions twice. Roger ate it up, kept making notes on his phone, probably documenting my decline for their plan. But I was documenting too. Started carrying a small notebook, writing down every suspicious conversation, every lie, every manipulation, old habits from police work. Always build your case before you move. A week later, Roger suggested we consolidate my bank accounts, make things simpler, easier to manage. He'd handle all the paperwork, just needed me to sign a few documents, power of attorney stuff, all perfectly normal for someone my age. I pretended to consider it, told him I needed time to think. That night, I called Victor from a payphone downtown. Couldn't risk using my home phone anymore. Dad, I've been investigating Roger for months. He's part of an elder fraud network. They target retired law enforcement, people with good pensions and savings. His real name isn't even Roger Mitchell. Who is he? Barry Novak, disbarred lawyer from Chicago. Has a history of this exact scam. Finds wealthy elderly targets, usually through dating their daughters or nieces. Gets access to the home, starts medication tampering, builds an incompetency case, then takes guardianship. And Linda? Victor was quiet. Dad, she knows. We have recordings of them planning it together. She's using her medical knowledge to help make the incompetency claim that looked legitimate. That hit harder than finding out about the pills. My own daughter, the girl I'd taught to ride a bike, walk down the aisle, held when her mother died. She was helping them steal everything I'd worked for. But I'm a cop. Been one for 35 years. You don't survive that long on the streets by giving up when things get tough. You adapt, you plan, you execute, and you never ever let the bad guys win. The next few weeks I became a different man, not the confused old-timer they thought they were manipulating. I was back to being a cop, building a case, gathering evidence. First thing I did was get those pills tested. Had a buddy from the lab run them through analysis. Results came back exactly what I expected. My regular blood pressure medication had been mixed with heavy-duty sedatives, enough to keep me groggy and confused, but not enough to kill me. They needed me alive, but incompetent. I started keeping 2 sets of pills. The doctored ones Roger was giving me, which I'd pretend to take but actually flush down the toilet. And the real ones I got from the pharmacy myself, driving there when Roger and Linda were at work. Within a week, my head was clear for the first time in months. That's when I really started seeing what they'd been doing to me. Roger had been gradually taking control of everything. My mail, my phone calls, my doctor appointments. He'd moved his office into my study, said it was more convenient for managing my affairs. What he was really doing was positioning himself to intercept anything that might expose their scheme. I found documents in his desk one night while they were out. Financial powers of attorney ready for my signature. Medical directives giving Linda authority over my healthcare decisions. Even a draft will that left everything to them, claiming I'd become too confused to manage my own estate. The scariest part was how methodical they were. Every conversation with friends or neighbors, Roger would follow up with calls explaining that I was having memory issues, getting confused, maybe not safe living alone anymore. He was building a public record of my supposed decline, but 2 could play that game. I installed a small camera inside my favorite antique clock, the one sitting on the living room mantle. Amazing what you can buy online these days. High definition, motion activated, records everything to a memory card. Roger and Linda spent so much time in that room planning their next moves. Never suspecting the 1920s mantle clock was documenting every word. That camera captured gold. Roger meeting with 2 other men in my living room while I was supposedly napping upstairs. They discussed timelines, how long before they could file guardianship papers, which doctor they had bribed to sign off on my mental evaluation. The men were part of Roger's network. They'd done this before, multiple times, had a whole system worked out. Target elderly people with significant assets, usually through family connections, drug them gradually, isolate them from support systems, build medical evidence of incompetence, then take legal guardianship and liquidate everything. Linda was there too, participating actively in the planning, talking about which medications would cause the most confusion without being obviously harmful, how they'd gradually increase dosages until I was completely dependent on them for daily care. She even suggested they move me to a nursing facility once they had guardianship, somewhere I'd be isolated and controlled. The worst part was listening to them laugh about it, called me the old fool, said I was too trusting, too stupid to see what was happening right under my nose. Linda said I'd been asking for it, living alone in such a big house with all that money just sitting there doing nothing. That's when I realized my daughter wasn't just being manipulated. She was a willing participant, maybe even the one who'd given Roger the idea in the first place. I also started tracking their financial activities more carefully. Roger had been slowly transferring money from my accounts to various shell companies he controlled. Started small, maybe $500 here and there, then gradually larger amounts. By the time I caught on, they'd stolen over $85,000 from my savings and retirement accounts. But money wasn't their endgame. They wanted everything. The house, my pension, my life insurance, even my classic car collection in the garage. Once they had guardianship, they could liquidate it all, move me into state care, and disappear with everything I'd worked 35 years to build. I needed help, but I had to be careful about who to trust. Victor couldn't officially assist because of family conflict rules in the FBI, but he could give me guidance, point me toward resources, help me understand what evidence I'd need to stop them. That's when I contacted my old partner, Gary Martinez. We'd worked together for 15 years before I made chief, trusted each other with our lives more times than I could count. Gary had retired the same year I did, now ran a private security company. If anyone would believe my story and help me fight back, it was him. Gary came over on a Saturday afternoon when Roger and Linda were out shopping. I showed him everything: the doctored pills, the financial records, the hidden cameras, the recordings of their planning sessions. Gary listened to it all, his cop instincts kicking in just like mine had. This is serious elder abuse, Harold. Federal charges territory. But we need more evidence, something that shows intent and premeditation beyond any doubt. And we need to catch them in the act of actually filing false documents. Gary helped me install additional surveillance equipment throughout the house, cameras in the study where Roger worked, audio recording devices in the kitchen where they often discussed their plans, even a GPS tracker on Roger's car so we could monitor his movements. The breakthrough came 2 weeks later. Roger received a call from someone he called Doc Cooper, obviously the corrupt doctor, who was supposed to evaluate my mental capacity. They scheduled a meeting for the following Tuesday, said it was time to move forward with the final phase of their plan. I knew this was it. Whatever they were planning, it would happen soon. I just had to be ready to document everything and spring the trap at exactly the right moment, because you only get one chance to catch. Criminals this smart miss that opportunity and they disappear forever, probably to victimize some other unsuspecting family. The clock was ticking, literally and figuratively, but I was ready. Tuesday morning arrived like a loaded gun. Roger was nervous, pacing around the kitchen, checking his phone every few minutes. Linda kept asking if everything was ready, if they had all the paperwork prepared. I played my part perfectly, acting confused and disoriented, asking the same questions repeatedly. Dr. Stanley Cooper arrived at 2 p.m. sharp. Tall, thin man in his 60s with a kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. He carried an official-looking medical bag and a clipboard full of forms. Roger greeted him like an old friend, which told me everything I needed to know about their relationship. "Hello, Mr. Williams," Dr. Cooper said, sitting down across from me in the living room. "Your family is concerned about some memory issues you've been having. I'm here to do a simple evaluation, just to make sure you're getting the care you need." The evaluation was a joke. Questions designed to make me look incompetent, situations set up to demonstrate confusion. What year is it? Who's the president? Can you count backwards from 100 by sevens? I gave wrong answers deliberately, acted frustrated and disoriented, played the role they wanted me to play. Meanwhile, my hidden cameras were recording everything. Dr. Cooper's leading questions, Roger's coaching from the sidelines, Linda's medical terminology thrown in to make it all sound legitimate. They thought they were documenting my incompetence. Actually, they were documenting their own fraud. The doctor asked me to sign some papers. Just consent forms for the evaluation, he said. But I'd learned to read documents carefully during my police career. These weren't consent forms. They were preliminary committal papers, legal documents that would start the guardianship process immediately. I'm too confused to sign anything. "Right now," I said, pushing the papers away. "Maybe later, when my head's clearer." Dr. Cooper exchanged glances with Roger. "We really should get these signed today, Mr. Williams. It's for your own protection." That's when I knew Victor's intelligence was accurate. They were moving fast, trying to get legal control before I could figure out what was happening. But I was already 10 steps ahead of them. After Dr. Cooper left, Roger and Linda had a celebration dinner. Champagne, expensive steaks, talking about their plans for the house, which renovations they'd make before putting it on the market. They thought they'd won. I excused myself early, said I was tired and confused. Went down to my workshop and made a final recording for the evidence file. "My name is Harold Williams. I'm 58 years old, retired Denver police chief. I am of sound mind and body. What you've witnessed today was a fraudulent medical evaluation conducted by Dr. Stanley Cooper at the request of my son-in-law, Barry Novak, who's been using the alias Roger Mitchell. They are attempting to have me declared mentally incompetent so they can steal my assets through fraudulent guardianship. I've been documenting their activities for weeks. They've drugged me, stolen over $85,000 from my accounts, and are planning to have me committed to a care facility while they liquidate everything I own. This is elder abuse, and it's about to stop." The next morning, they made their final move. Roger arrived with official-looking paperwork from Dr. Cooper, said the evaluation showed I needed immediate care and supervision. Linda backed him up with medical terminology, making it sound like I was in crisis. "Harold, we've scheduled an appointment with the county courthouse this afternoon," Roger said, spreading documents across the kitchen table. "Just temporary guardianship until you're feeling better. We'll handle all your affairs, make sure you're safe and cared for. They wanted me to sign papers giving them immediate authority over my finances, medical decisions, and living arrangements. The trap was closing, exactly as they'd planned it. That's when I dropped the act completely. I know exactly who you are, Barry Novak, I said calmly. I know about the $85,000 you've stolen. I know about your elder fraud network. I know you've done this to other families. And I know my daughter has been helping you every step of the way. The color drained from both their faces. Roger tried to maintain his composure, but his hands were shaking. Linda just stared at me like I'd come back from the dead. You can't prove anything, she whispered. Actually, I can. I pulled out my phone and played one of the recordings. Their own voices filled the kitchen, discussing dosages, timelines, which nursing home would be easiest to control me in. Roger talking about liquidating my classic car collection, Linda laughing about the old fool who trusted them completely. You're bluffing, Roger said, but his voice cracked. Even if you recorded us, it's inadmissible. Illegal surveillance in your own home. He was wrong about the law, but I didn't correct him. Instead, I kept talking. I also had the pills you've been giving me analyzed, heavy sedatives mixed with my regular medication. That's poisoning, Barry, felony charges. And I've documented every dollar you've stolen, every forged document, every lie you've told to my friends and neighbors. Roger stood up abruptly, grabbed Linda's arm. We're leaving, right now. You can leave, I said. But the FBI is already involved. My son Victor has been building a case against your entire network for months. You've got about 10 minutes before they arrive with arrest warrants. That wasn't entirely true. Victor couldn't move officially until we had ironclad evidence. But Roger didn't know that, and panic was making him careless. He ran for the front door, Linda right behind him. I followed slowly, watching through the window as they threw suitcases into their car. Neighbors were starting to notice the commotion, which was perfect. I wanted witnesses to their guilt and flight, but they didn't get far. Gary Martinez was waiting at the end of the driveway with 2 other retired cops from our precinct. Citizen's arrest, he called out as Roger's car screeched to a halt. Elder abuse, theft, fraud. You're not going anywhere until the real police arrive. I'd called 911 while they were upstairs packing. Denver PD was already en route, along with Adult Protective Services and a detective from the Financial Crimes Unit. Everything was about to become very official, very quickly. The police arrived within minutes. 3 squad cars, lights flashing, neighbors gathering on their porches to watch the drama unfold. Detective Sarah Morrison from Financial Crimes took charge of the scene, separating Roger and Linda for individual questioning, while crime scene techs began collecting evidence from my house. Barry Novak, you're under arrest for elder abuse, some financial exploitation, and conspiracy to commit fraud, Detective Morrison announced as she cuffed Roger. Linda Williams, you're under arrest as an accessory to elder abuse and practicing medicine in a fraudulent context. Roger tried one last manipulation. This is a misunderstanding, officer. Harold's been having serious memory problems. We were trying to help him, get him proper care. Check with Dr. Cooper. He'll confirm everything. Dr. Cooper was already in custody. The FBI had been watching him for months as part of their broader investigation into Roger's network. When they raided his office that morning, they found files on dozens of elderly victims, all with similar fraudulent evaluations, all designed to strip away their independence and assets. The trial took place 8 months later, federal court, because Roger's network operated across state lines. I testified for 2 days, walking the jury through every detail of their scheme. The recordings, the doctored, medications, the financial theft, the fake medical evaluations. Victor couldn't testify directly because of his family connection, but the FBI's case was solid without him. They'd identified 23 victims across 4 states, total losses exceeding $3.2 million. Roger wasn't just a common criminal. He was the mastermind of an organized elder abuse operation. The hardest part was watching Linda on the witness stand. She tried to claim she'd been manipulated, that Roger had convinced her I was actually declining, that she thought she was helping me. But the recordings told a different story. Her voice, clear and calculated, discussing which drugs would be most effective, which nursing homes would ask the fewest questions. When the prosecutor played the recording of her laughing about me being a trusting old fool, I saw several jury members visibly recoil. You can claim manipulation all you want, but laughter reveals true character. The sentences came down in November. Roger got 12 years. Federal prison with no possibility of parole until he served at least 10. Linda received 4 years, lost her nursing license permanently, and was ordered to pay full restitution for her share of the stolen money. Dr. Cooper got 8 years and lost his medical license. The 2 other network members they caught received similar sentences. The FBI estimated they'd prevented at least 15 additional families from being victimized by breaking up the operation. During my victim impact statement, I looked directly at both of them. Roger, you targeted me because you thought a retired cop would have money, but be too old and trusting to fight back. You were half right. I do have money because I worked for it, but you were completely wrong about the rest. Then I turned to Linda. You were my daughter. I loved you, protected you, gave you every opportunity to build an honest life. You threw that away for money that wasn't yours. I hope prison teaches you what integrity actually costs, Linda cried during my statement, but I was done feeling sorry for her. Tears don't undo fraud. Remorse doesn't restore trust. Actions have consequences, and she'd earned every day of her sentence. The house felt different after they were gone, quiet in a way it hadn't been since Roger first moved in. I had Gary Martinez change all the locks, upgrade the security system, sweep for any remaining surveillance equipment they might have planted. I kept working on my clocks, found it therapeutic. Each broken timepiece was a puzzle to solve, damaged mechanisms that could be restored with patience and skill. Some things could be fixed, others just needed to be discarded and replaced with better components. 6 months after the trial, I received a letter from Linda, written from federal prison, 3 pages of apologies and explanations. Said she'd been attending counseling, learning about manipulation and financial abuse, understanding how she'd been led astray. I read the first paragraph, then threw the letter away without finishing it. Sorry doesn't undo betrayal. Therapy doesn't restore stolen money. Understanding how you were manipulated doesn't excuse the choice to manipulate others. Victor visits more often now, brings his kids around on weekends. They like watching me work on the clocks, ask questions about gears and springs and balance wheels. Maybe these grandchildren will grow up with better values than their aunt did. The FBI used our case to create training materials for other departments. How to recognize elder abuse, what evidence to collect, how to support elderly victims who fight back. Detective Morrison said our recordings were some of the clearest documentation of elder fraud she'd ever seen. I still live in the same house, still get up every morning and work on broken clocks. But I'm more careful now about who I trust, who I allow into my home and my life. Being a cop for 35 years taught me that most people are good. Being betrayed by my own family taught me that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. Last month, I got a call from a 73-year-old veteran in Phoenix whose nephew was trying to pull the same scam. He'd heard about our case, wanted advice on gathering evidence and protecting himself. I spent 2 hours walking him through everything we'd learned, helping him set up his own investigation. That's what I'm most proud of. Not the revenge, not seeing them in handcuffs, though that was satisfying. It's knowing that other families won't go through what I did, that other elderly people will recognize the warning signs and fight back before it's too late. I'm 58 years old. Could live another 30 years, maybe more. I'll spend that time doing what I've always done, fixing broken things, catching criminals, and protecting people who can't protect themselves. The clocks in my workshop keep perfect time now, their mechanisms restored and balanced. Each one marks another hour survived, another day of independence preserved, another moment of justice served. Time marches on, and so do I. Being older doesn't mean being helpless. It just means being smarter than the people trying to fool you. The strongest revenge isn't getting even. It's making sure no one else gets hurt the same way you did.